Jenna's evening started with the nervous excitement of a blind date, meticulously arranged by her best friend. Expecting little more than a decent dinner and perhaps a laugh, Jenna found herself intrigued by Ethan, her date, whose charm was undeniable. Their connection was instant, leading her to accept an invitation to his home for a nightcap. But what was supposed to be the end of a perfect night took a bewildering turn. The moment Jenna laid eyes on a peculiar photo hanging in Ethan's living room. Her heart dropped, and without a second thought, she excused herself, stepping outside to call the police. Jenna's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her dress in front of the mirror. Tonight was her blind date, arranged by her best friend, Maria. She didn't have high hopes, but Maria's enthusiasm was infectious. "He's perfect for you," Maria had insisted, and now Jenna was about to find out. The restaurant was a romantic, dimly lit place that Jenna had never noticed before, tucked away between the bustling cafes of the city. As she entered, her eyes searched and found Ethan waiting, a tall man with a warm smile. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "Jenna?" he asked, as if confirming just to make sure. Over dinner, Ethan was both charming and enigmatic. He shared stories of his travels and his work as a freelance photographer, each tale more intriguing than the last. Jenna found herself laughing more than she had in months. There was an ease to him, a familiarity that felt both comforting and rare. She could have known then that it might be too good to be true. As they shared a dessert, Ethan's hand brushed hers. The touch was accidental, but it sparked a connection that felt intentional. "Would you like to continue this over a nightcap at my place?" he suggested after a moment of silence. Jenna hesitated, but the night had gone so well. "Sure," she replied, her curiosity piqued. Ethan's home was a cozy, well-kept apartment with a stunning view of the city skyline. He poured them both a drink, and Jenna admired the mix of modern art and vintage photographs that were displayed on the walls. But as her eyes wandered, she froze. There, in a quiet corner, hung a peculiar photo. It was an old picture of a family, a mother, father, a little boy, and a young girl, around 5 years old, standing in front of a forest entrance. The girl's expression was happy, her smile bright. Jenna felt a chill run down her spine as she stared at the photo. Something about it was unsettlingly familiar. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Ethan's voice came from behind her. Jenna turned, trying to mask her sudden spike of anxiety. "Yes, it's captivating," she replied. "Who is she?" Ethan's expression darkened slightly, but he quickly plastered a smile on his face. "It's a long story, one perhaps for another time," he said, swiftly changing the subject. As they sat down with their drinks on the lush couch, Jenna couldn't shake the image of the girl from her mind. Why did it bother her so much? Conversation flowed, but Jenna was distracted, her thoughts circling back to the haunting image and Ethan's hesitant response about it. Somehow, the entire tone of the evening had shifted the moment she'd laid eyes on that picture. Finally, unable to hold it in, Jenna excused herself and stepped outside under the pretense of needing fresh air. Once alone, she pulled out her phone. Her fingers hesitated over the keypad. Could she simply be overreacting? Yet intuition pushed her forward. She dialed the emergency number. As she waited for the call to connect, Jenna paced. She didn't know what she'd say, or why she felt so compelled to call the authorities. It was just a photo, after all. But deep down, she knew something wasn't right. The phone rang, and she took a deep breath, ready to dive into the unknown. The phone clicked, and a calm voice answered, 911. "What's your emergency?" Jenna's voice trembled. I I'm not sure if I should be calling this in, but something's not right. She clutched the phone tighter, her gaze flitting across the shadowed room, half expecting Ethan to appear any moment. The dispatcher's tone was steady, grounding. It's okay. You did the right thing by calling. Tell me what's happening. There's this photo in the apartment. It's of a little girl, Jenna whispered, her voice barely above a murmur as she glanced towards the hallway, fearing Ethan's return. Something about it scares me. And the man I'm with, he won't tell me anything about her. The line was silent for a moment, save for the dispatcher typing. Do you feel like you're in danger right now, Jenna? The dispatcher asked, a note of urgency in her voice. The dispatcher's next question snapped Jenna back to reality. Can you give me your location? Jenna's mind raced. I don't know the address. I came here with someone from a date, she admitted, her voice laced with embarrassment and fear. Panic crept into her words as she realized her predicament. The operator's tone was calm. It's all right, Jenna. Just stay on the line with me, okay? As Jenna held the phone tightly against her ear, her eyes darted to the apartment's front door. I think it's near the center of town. Maybe a high-rise with a view of the skyline, she described, hoping it was enough. The dispatcher's voice was a beacon in the dark. You're doing great, Jenna. We're trying to trace your call now. Just keep talking to me, all right? We're working on finding you through your phone signal, Jenna, the dispatcher whispered, a subtle assurance in her tone. Jenna's heart pounded as she realized help might be on its way. She pressed her back against a shadowy corner of the living room, out of sight from the front door. Thank you, she breathed, relief and fear mingling in her chest as she waited for signs of Ethan's return. The door hinges gave a soft squeak as Ethan stepped into the room, his eyebrows knotted with concern and a hint of suspicion. Hey, is everything all right? He asked, voice tinged with caution. Jenna could feel his gaze piercing through her, trying to read her face for clues. The air felt heavier as she met his questioning eyes, forcing a nod while clutching her phone even tighter to her chest. It's my sister, Jenna stammered, feigning a troubled look. She's having a bit of a crisis and really needs to talk. Her voice wobbled as she spoke, hoping to sell the lie. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly, scrutinizing her expression as if trying to peel back the layers of her hastily crafted excuse. Do you need some privacy? He asked, his tone a mix of concern and curiosity. Relief flickered across Jenna's face as Ethan took a step back, giving her room. I'd appreciate that, thanks, she managed to say, her voice brightening with feigned reassurance. She edged toward the balcony, adding, I'll just be outside. Won't be long. She threw him a shaky smile, pretending to dial as she watched him retreat, her heart thudding loudly against her ribs. Just keep talking, and try to sound natural, instructed the dispatcher through the phone. Jenna nodded silently, then turned to gaze out at the night sky, speaking into the phone with exaggerated calm. Yes, I got everything you sent me. Thanks for checking in, she murmured, weaving a fictional story about her sister's supposed troubles, hoping her voice carried enough normalcy to fool Ethan. I'll handle it. Don't worry, Jenna continued, loud enough for Ethan to hear as he glanced back from the doorway. She gestured vaguely with her hand, a universal sign of, I'll be a while, and turned her back slightly to him. Yeah, I understand. It's important, she added to the phone, her voice a blend of concern and reassurance, playing her part while her eyes darted around, searching for any sign of Ethan's next move. Jenna felt Ethan's stare as a chill down her spine while she pretended to focus on the phone call. He hovered in the doorway, watching her, his brow creased with suspicion. After a moment, He reluctantly turned and retreated back into the apartment's dim interior, his footsteps heavy and hesitant. Jenna breathed a quiet sigh of relief, buying herself a moment longer in the cold night air. "Jenna, we've pinpointed your location. Officers are on their way." The dispatcher's voice came through clearly, easing some of Jenna's tension. "Hang tight and keep him engaged, if you can." Jenna's grip on her phone tightened, relief mixing with the nerve-wracking reality that she just needed to keep up her act a little longer. "Got it. I'll do my best," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. "Keep the conversation going, Jenna. Stick to your story," the dispatcher instructed quietly. Jenna nodded, even though no one could see. "Yes, I understand," she responded, her voice shaky. She rehearsed her next lines silently, planning to tell Ethan her sister was calming down, but still needed her. Every word felt heavier, each second stretched out as she prepared to sell her story. Back and forth across the balcony, Jenna paced, chewing on her lip. "Maybe I'll say the situation's getting resolved, but it's a slow process," she thought out loud, trying to sound convincing even to her own ears. She needed to make Ethan believe she was still deeply involved in her sister's crisis, all while keeping an eye on the dark outline of the apartment door. Jenna took a deep, steadying breath, preparing to step back inside. "Okay, let's do this," she whispered to herself, trying to muster a semblance of calm. She practiced a casual smile, one that would hopefully convey that everything was still normal. With a last reassuring glance at the twinkling city lights, she turned, hand on the door handle, ready to keep her facade intact. Hand on the doorknob, Jenna forced a relaxed smile as she stepped back into the dimly lit living room where Ethan waited. Her heart pounded furiously under her calm facade. "Everything okay?" Ethan asked, eyeing her as she moved slowly across the room. "Yeah, just family stuff," Jenna replied, trying to sound weary yet composed, her nerves screaming inside. "You were gone a while," Ethan noted, his tone a mix of curiosity and concern. Jenna nodded, fabricating quickly. "My sister's really upset. You know how it is." Took a while to calm her down. She forced a sigh, hoping her feigned stress would mask her real terror, making her story seem more credible. Jenna rubbed her temples, mimicking frustration and exhaustion. "She's just going through a lot right now," she continued, her voice tinged with faux concern. Ethan watched her, then nodded slowly, seemingly buying into her act. He kept his distance, giving Jenna just enough space to breathe and keep her anxiety somewhat in check. Jenna settled onto the edge of the couch, her posture relaxed, but her mind was racing. She glanced at the clock, then back at Ethan, smiling weakly. Inside, she was counting each second, feeling like every minute stretched on forever. "So, what were we talking about?" she asked, trying to reignite their earlier conversation as a distraction. Relief was so close, yet the wait was excruciating. Jenna felt her heart skip with every car sound outside, wondering if it was the police arriving. She laughed a little too loudly at something Ethan said, her laugh masking the whirlwind of fear and anticipation inside her. "Yeah, that's really interesting," she managed to say, keeping up her act as best as she could. Jenna tried to focus on Ethan's stories, but her eyes kept darting around the room. Each laugh and nod was punctuated with a nervous glance towards the wall where the sepia-toned picture had hung. Now, only a faint outline in the dust marked its absence. Her stomach tightened. Why would he take it down suddenly? As Ethan laughed at his own joke, Jenna's gaze returned to the empty space on the wall. The absence of the peculiar photo sent a chill through her. She wrapped her arms around herself subtly, as if to quell the rising panic inside. What did it mean that it was gone now, just when she had started asking questions? Ethan's laughter faded as he caught Jenna's fixated stare on the wall. "What are you looking at?" he asked, his voice dropping a notch. Jenna flinched slightly, then whispered, "The picture that was there. Where did it go?" Her voice was so soft it was almost lost in the space between them. For a moment, Ethan just stared at her, his expression darkening. His eyes locked with hers, hard and unyielding. The room felt suddenly colder, the air between them charged with a tense silence that seemed to echo her racing heartbeat. Jenna held his gaze, her mouth dry, wondering if she had pushed too far. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken questions. Jenna's heart thudded painfully against her ribs as she waited for Ethan to explain. His jaw was set, his eyes still fixed on her, calculating. Jenna could almost hear her own breaths, sharp and shallow, as the seconds ticked by in the oppressive quiet of the room. Just as Ethan's mouth opened to speak, loud knocks shattered the tense silence. "Police! Open up!" The authoritative shout from the other side of the door jolted both of them. Jenna's heart leapt to her throat, her eyes wide as she watched Ethan's confusion quickly morph into realization, and then anger, his gaze snapping to her with fierce intensity. Ethan's expression twisted into one of betrayal as he pieced together Jenna's involvement with the sudden intrusion. His eyes narrowed, lips pressed into a thin line. "You called them," he hissed, voice low and dangerous. Jenna could only nod, shrinking back against the sofa, as the reality of her actions and their consequences suddenly became very tangible and immediate. With a sharp turn, Ethan strode towards the door, his movements quick and deliberate. Jenna's breath caught as she watched him, his back tense and shoulders rigid. As he reached for the door handle, his hand was steady, betraying none of the turmoil that might have been churning inside him. Jenna felt a mix of relief and dread, knowing the next moments were crucial. The door burst open before Ethan could fully turn the handle. Two police officers charged in, their voices loud and commanding. "Hands where we can see them!" they shouted as they quickly filled the small entryway, pushing past Ethan with focused urgency. Jenna stayed frozen on the couch, her eyes flicking between the officers and Ethan, her heart pounding fiercely. Ethan stood motionless for a moment as the officers surrounded him, his face draining of color as the full weight of Jenna's actions hit him. He glanced back at Jenna, his look one of shock and disbelief. The officers began speaking to him, but his eyes remained locked on Jenna. A mix of questions and accusations silently communicated in his stunned expression. As he opened the door wider to let the officers in, Ethan muttered, "You did this." His voice was low, laced with hurt and disbelief. Jenna heard the accusation clear and sharp, slicing through the tense air as the police entered the living room one by one, their stern faces reflecting the gravity of the situation. Jenna stood aside, her heart heavy, knowing her safety might come at the cost of this profound betrayal. The living room quickly filled with officers, their serious expressions and the subtle clink of their gear setting a somber tone. They moved with purpose, positioning themselves around the room, their eyes scanning every corner as they assessed the situation. Jenna watched silently from the sidelines, the room shrinking under the weight of law enforcement's presence. Ethan's composure didn't falter as two officers approached him. His calmness was eerie, almost as if he had anticipated this moment. "Ethan Andrews, you need to come with us," one officer said firmly. Without a word, Ethan turned around, extending his hands behind him for the handcuffs. His compliance was silent, but charged with an unspoken defiance. As the officers led him towards the door, Ethan turned his head to give Jenna one last look. His eyes bore into hers, a mix of betrayal and pain reflected in his gaze. Jenna's heart ached at the sight, her stomach knotting up as she met his stare. The door closed behind him, cutting off the connection, leaving Jenna to face the aftermath alone. With Ethan gone, the officers began to secure the area, moving furniture and checking windows. One of them approached Jenna. "We need to talk about what happened tonight," he said, pulling out a notebook. Jenna nodded, her surroundings a blur as she prepared to recount the evening's harrowing events. The room, a physical manifestation of the turmoil that had unfolded. Jenna's ride to the police station was quiet, her mind reeling from the night's events. Once there, she was ushered into a small, sterile room where she began recounting the evening in detail. "It started off as a typical blind date," she explained, her voice steady, but her hands fidgeting nervously on her lap as she spoke. She described their dinner, Ethan's charm, and how they ended up at his apartment. "Then I saw this photo." Jenna's voice faltered a bit. It was old, eerie, showing a young girl in a field. It disappeared later, which made me even more suspicious. Her eyes darted around the room, still feeling the weight of that image in her mind. "Your testimony is crucial," one officer explained, his tone serious. "Details like the photo are key. We're going to conduct a thorough search of his apartment, based on what you've told us." Jenna nodded, absorbing the gravity of her role in the unfolding investigation. The reality that her words could significantly impact the case settled heavily on her shoulders. Jenna provided descriptions of Ethan's apartment layout and specific details about where items of interest might be located. The photo was in the living room, on the east wall, she recalled clearly. Her cooperation felt like unraveling a part of herself, each detail shared adding to the mosaic of evidence being compiled. As she finished her account, Jenna felt a mix of relief and anxiety. She had done what was necessary, but the weight of her actions hung over her. "What if they don't find anything?" she thought, her stomach knotting up with worry. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing thoughts as she prepared for the next phase of the investigation. Officers moved methodically through Ethan's apartment, documenting every detail as Jenna waited in the station, her fingers twisting together in her lap. Each minute felt longer than the last, her mind racing with every possible outcome. From her seat, she could only imagine the flurry of activity as evidence was collected. Each item a potential key to understanding the evening's disturbing events. Meanwhile, Ethan sat across from another set of officers, his jaw set, lips pressed firmly together. Despite their probing questions, he offered nothing that could illuminate his actions or explain the unsettling photo. His resistance only added layers to the mystery, deepening Jenna's unease as she considered the possibility that Ethan had much more to hide. Jenna sat alone in a stark, cold waiting area, the harsh fluorescent lights flickering above. The events of the night replayed in her head like a movie on loop. Each replay brought new fears and questions, the uncertainty of her situation enveloping her in a thick fog of dread. How had a simple date spiraled into such chaos? Hours ticked by until an officer approached Jenna, a box in his hands. Inside, stacks of photographs similar to the one she had seen at Ethan's, each featuring the same solemn-faced girl in various settings. Jenna's breath caught in her throat as she sifted through them, each image echoing the chilling atmosphere of the first. What did this mean? The sight of the photographs, all depicting the same young girl, sent a wave of sadness through Jenna. Her heart sank as she realized the depth of the mystery she had uncovered and the potential danger she had been in. What story lay behind these haunting images? She felt overwhelmed, her earlier anxiety now mixed with a profound sense of foreboding, as she waited for the officers to return. An officer spread the photos across the table and Jenna leaned in, her eyes scanning each one. "Yes, these look like the one I saw," she confirmed, her voice a whisper. Her finger hovered over a picture, pausing as she noticed something, a small, dark birthmark on the girl's neck. Her breath caught. It was oddly familiar. Her hand trembled as she touched the birthmark in the photo, then instinctively reached to her own neck. There it was, the same mark, in the exact same place. "This... how?" she stammered, looking up at the officer with wide, shocked eyes. The room seemed to spin as the realization hit her with the weight of 1,000 bricks. As Jenna stared at the photographs, the pieces fell into place. The deep-seated familiarity, the eerie connection she felt to the photo. It was her. Those were her eyes staring back, her somber expression from years past. How could this be? She shook her head, struggling to piece together the fragmented memories that suddenly clamored for attention in her mind. The discovery was overwhelming. Jenna wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the chill of the revelation seep into her bones. "I was that girl. All these years, and I never knew," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. The realization brought a rush of questions about her past, about the pictures, about who she really was and what had happened to her. As the horror of the truth settled in, Jenna felt a gnawing curiosity push through her fear. Who had taken these photos? What did they mean? And most importantly, what was Ethan's role in all this? Her past, once a faded tapestry, now seemed vividly sinister. She needed answers, and she knew the only way to get them was to face Ethan again. As Jenna entered the interrogation room, her eyes immediately met Ethan's. He sat across the table, his expression carefully neutral, giving nothing away. Jenna's heart raced. The man she had known as a date was now a central figure in her unfolding past. She took a deep breath and sat down opposite him, the air thick with anticipation and uncertainty. Breaking the heavy silence, Ethan finally spoke. "I'm not who you think I am." His voice was calm, his eyes earnest. "I'm a private investigator. This wasn't about dating, it was about protecting you." Jenna's eyes widened in confusion, her mind racing to keep up with his words. She leaned forward, her hands clenching into fists on the table. "Protecting me? From what?" she demanded. Ethan explained that the photos were clues in a much larger investigation into stolen identities and missing children. "Those pictures, they're part of my case files. I've been tracking cases where children were taken from their families years ago." Jenna felt a cold shiver run down her spine as Ethan continued, revealing the depth of a criminal network that preyed on the innocent. "Jenna, you are the girl in those photos," Ethan said gently, watching her reaction closely. "You were taken from your real parents when you were just a baby." The room seemed to spin around her as Jenna absorbed the shock. Tears welled up in her eyes as the fragments of her childhood, previously unconnected, began to form a coherent, albeit painful, picture. The revelation hit Jenna like a wave. Her past, long a mystery, now connected disturbingly with her present. "My parents, are they?" She couldn't finish the sentence, her voice choked with emotion. Ethan nodded slowly, his eyes sympathetic. "We've located them. They've been looking for you all these years." Jenna's tears overflowed as relief, sorrow, and the overwhelming desire to reclaim her life merged into a single, profound moment of truth. You like this touching and surprising story? If so, we invite you to leave us a comment expressing your opinion. If you want to continue enjoying inspiring stories like this one, subscribe to our channel or check out the other videos shown at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for your cooperation.